This is Beyond the Uniform with TJ Brassel.
Well, welcome into the season finale of Season 2 of Beyond the Uniform. I'm TJ Brassel. This is another special edition that we're ending it on, and for the first time, we have a player turned coach joining us today as we welcome in Theo Robertson, who's one of the player development coaches for the Golden State Warriors. Theo, thank you for joining the show, man.
Man, I appreciate it. Excited to be here.
So, just to give everyone a little more background on who you are, so you went and you played basketball at De La Salle High School, and then you went to University of Cal Berkeley. You were a two-time captain there, scored over 1,300 points, shot 44% from three, which is still a school record. Team MVP. You were part of the first conference championship since 1960. So you had a stellar career when you were at Cal, and it was really looking good to kind of head to the NBA, and that's when you had your third hip surgery and some injuries kind of derailed it. So first off, just when you eventually got into coaching, and we'll get into kind of the whole route you took to get to coaching and everything, but when you got into that, how did you transfer that passion from playing to now coaching?
Well, it wasn't an immediate transition for me. When I finished my senior year, as you mentioned, I had my third hip surgery, and I actually tried to rehab and get myself back healthy enough to play. For me, the decision really came down to consulting with doctors and them telling me that I would really only have 3, 4, 5 years to be out there and feeling healthy and all that kind of stuff. And so when I sat back and kind of assessed the situation, I felt like the best decision for me was to just kind of pivot and start looking towards what would be next. Thinking, hey, I'm coming off of an injury. If I've got 3, 4 years, it's undoubtedly going to take me another year just to get back to myself, perform well in that year, build back up some stock, and then have another team believe in me and get another chance after that. So you've already scratched a year from the timetable that they gave me. So once I made that decision, I decided just start looking for opportunities, and I ended up working at the Pac-12 for a year. And wanted to do something different, just to expose myself, really just to being in a professional setting. I hadn't done that previously while I was on campus. And I'm sure that the experiences are similar for a lot of student athletes. There's just not a whole heck of a lot of time to be doing internships, informational interviews. And maybe there is, but I was just really focused on being the best basketball player that I could be, doing my very best in the classroom. But really with the intent on trying to be a pro.
So how difficult was that transition? Because, you weren't able to play really because of no factors that you can control. It was nothing that you did. So how difficult was that transition mentally to be all right, I have to figure out a new plan because what I was working for and what I was set up for isn't going to work anymore?
Yeah, it was extremely difficult. It's something that you've invested a lot of time in, a lot of equity, sweat equity, the investment that was made, not just from myself, but those that supported me. That made it really difficult to walk away from and to walk away from something that essentially, was my life at 23 years old, and to go have to try to figure the next steps out. That was challenging. I remember the day that I decided I wasn't going to play anymore. It was on my birthday. So I had the surgery in March or the spring, whenever of 2010. I rehabbed from that point up until December. And I'm sitting in the gym on my birthday. And then at that point, I remember I finished my workout and I just knew. I was like, man, I don't have it. I don't have the pop. It's frustrating having to recalibrate your expectations for yourself. If the game wasn't going to be fun playing the way I would have had to play it. So I decided I wanted to walk away with it still being fresh in my mind that I was a good player and having played at a high level. And again, giving myself the most time and the best opportunity to start that transition to whatever was next. But it was extremely difficult. I just sat in the gym and cried, for a little bit, and just kind of had to deal with that. And then literally the next day, I was out, had resume ready, cold calling people, just trying to figure it out. So I think the lesson learned in that, or what I would take away from that, was In basketball, in sport, there's so many things that you already mentioned that you can't control, and it's how you respond to those situations that really matters. And so I've never really been one to um, lament issues, spend a lot of energy on the problem. I like to channel that energy towards the solution and moving forward. And so I gave myself a couple hours a day, whatever, celebrated that night probably for my birthday, and then next day was back to it, trying to figure out what was next.
Very much that athlete mentality of like, all right, on to the next one. Here we go. Just gotta kind of get going. But off the top, I also mentioned you went to De La Salle High School, and when you were there, I mean, you still hold the record for overall field goal percentage and 3-point field goal percentage. You scored over 1,200 points as a Spartan there. And for people who don't really know, so you played under Coach Frank Colaco. So people who don't know necessarily like how he coached, like he was a very defensive minded coach. He had a very specific offense that didn't necessarily lead to really running up a lot of points. So in my opinion, scoring 1,200 at De La is kind of like scoring double pretty much everywhere else. So just wanted to kind of put that out there. But something that happened as of recently, and congratulations are in order, is that you were elected to the 2020 class of the De La Salle Hall of Fame. So congratulations on that. How did that feel to be part of that whole group and be elected to that Hall of Fame?
Well, appreciate it. It was a crazy experience. It's still crazy to me. It's surreal, quite frankly, just because I never thought of myself as, being in a position to have earned that type of distinguishment. But the fact that, it's going in as an individual, I think, anybody that knows anything about De La Salle and, just the unparalleled success that teams have there, individual greats, right? Like we're talking about best in class in the space that they occupy. So we all know the great football players that have come through the program, certainly basketball, but it goes on down the line in every sport. So the fact that I got that call and they were calling to notify that I had been inducted as an individual was like crazy to me. I just had never thought of myself in that way. I never thought that what I was able to accomplish in my time there would have come close to stacking up to some of the people that we've come to know and respect and love for what they contributed. But what really spoke to me was I think it was just more about, yes, what you did in high school was good, but just the collective I guess experiences. So De La Salle, Cal, just continuing to carry on the tradition of what it meant to be a Spartan, what it means to be a Spartan. I think they saw that in what I've been able to do since I've left campus, and was obviously extremely humbled by that honor, and super excited to get back on campus whenever we can to do that ceremony.
That's awesome. It's a huge accomplishment. So definitely congratulations. And I must say though, one of the other big accomplishments for that, as goes with this interview that happened at De La Salle, that was where I actually got to meet you, was when you were playing at De La Salle. I was I believe the fifth grader who was waterboying. And I heard the announcements a lot of Theo for 3-0 with all that 3-point shooting. So that is definitely for sure, and that's how this connection really got going. So that was really, it's a joy for me to be able to see you kind of get in that Hall of Fame as well. But you were talking about, or you mentioned kind of that next step after Cal, you went to Pac-12, and I've heard you talk about how that was when you were doing that internship at Pac-12, that was kind of where you realize, like, I really want to be more involved with teams and kind of go into something like a coaching or something like that. Like, how did that realization come about?
Yeah, so I had a phenomenal experience working for the Pac, and I had the opportunity to work with the very best in their fields. So whether that was in our business development department, sports and championship, I was just blown away by the incredible and talented people that I was working with. But the one thing that I was missing was just kind of this, I was missing the element of competition. So I remember I was able to sit down with Larry Scott, who's still currently the commissioner for the Pac-12. And I remember asking him, I said, hey, look, like, where do you get those competitive juices, and where do you get to, where's that outlet come for you? because the way I see it, this is a phenomenal opportunity to really work to create an equitable and standout experience for all of our student athletes across all 12 institutions. I was like, man, I'm trying to be like, I need to win. There needs to be a winner, a loser. I want to be in the foxhole with people. You know what I mean? So when I brought that to his attention, he told me that, well, he's moved in that way by trying to put the Pac-12 in the best possible position. So you can use other conferences and leagues as kind of a litmus to say, hey, are we doing it better, et cetera. I didn't have that in my role. So at that point, that's when I started thinking about basketball specifically. I've always been a detail guy. I like to teach. I wanted to give back to the game. I thought it was a great opportunity to have gone through a year where I had done something different and didn't just walk into basketball, not wanting to say, well, hey, I'm done playing. Let me just stay involved and coach. Like, I have great respect for what the craft demands as far as the time that needs to be put in, the detail in which you work. And so I knew I was ready for that after being a year out of the game. And once I had that conversation with Larry, I reached out to Mike Montgomery, who I played for my last 2 years at Cal. And we were able to work out a situation for me to return to campus the following year as a graduate manager. And we just took it off from there.
And that graduate manager role eventually led into you being the director of ops for a little bit as well. So what was that experience like for you at Cal to be back and be with basketball, but now be on the other side of it?
It was good. I think what it did was it just continued it was the beginning of a well-rounded collection of experiences that I've been fortunate to kind of accumulate over the years. So working in the Pac-12 offices, I was exposed to the administrative side of sport at the collegiate level, but certainly, you know, there's going to be intersection in dealing with professional leagues and corporate sponsors, so all these different things. So just generally speaking, having that athletic administration piece. Then I go back to campus, and as a graduate manager or as a director of operations, I'm still in athletic administration, but I'm on campus now. So just to be able to have a different lens, a different perspective, understand all the inner workings, I think really has been something that as I look back on it, has been really beneficial. I actually was so into it, like, because the rules in college are such that you can't get on the court as a director of ops. That wasn't a problem for me. I just wanted to dive all the way in, learn about scheduling, learn about compliance, learn about fundraising, add all those tools to my skill set, and use that to continue to move forward. And I was able to do that while working for Coach Montgomery.
So you talk about adding those tools to your skill set. What did you take from working at Cal to now what you've been doing at the Warriors and all the places you've been since then?
That's a great question. I think when you're working on campus and certainly in the collegiate space, the resources available aren't as bountiful as, you know, they are here with the Warriors. And so you learn to be creative, you learn to be proactive, you learn to juggle a lot of different things, have your hand in a lot of different buckets. Being on campus, you know, I think processes and workflows are a little bit different. So you get a really good education in building relationships that will support the mission that you're trying to accomplish. And so I think, you know, it wasn't really anything different than what anyone does in their respective lines of work. But it was important for me to get that experience at a very young age. Like I mentioned before, not really having that background at any point in time previously because of my involvement in sport. So I would say, you know, of the many skills that I acquired, I use them all on a daily basis, depending on the situation that's thrown my way for that particular day.
And then from Cal was when you kind of started your initial journey with the Warriors, and you originally got into the Warriors with video production, or video coordination, I should say. How did that all come about?
So when we finished, I forget what season it was, maybe the 2013-14 season,
Mhm.
Coach Montgomery decided to retire. I think I was like 27 at the time, and I knew I would have a good opportunity to stay in the college game, but I wanted to really try my hand professionally. I just
Mhm.
love the NBA. I love being around the best. I wanted to be the best, and so at what I do, and so there was no other way to work towards that than to try to put myself in that environment. And I just committed at that point in time. I said, I actually told myself I'll give myself 3 years to try to get in the NBA. And I was really intentional about saying that because, like, within that 3 years, what I was telling myself was, like, I was truly ready to do anything to make it happen, right? So,
Mhm.
move anywhere, make whatever, make nothing. Like, we got to make it happen. Um, I don't know why I came up with that arbitrary deadline. Whatever, it just seemed to make sense for me. But, like, I didn't want to be feeling like, Cal graduate, 30 years old, still kind of entry level. Like it didn't make sense to me. So I wanted to put some urgency on myself to like really go get it. And with that mentality, I was reaching out to a lot of different people in the league. The Warriors, obviously down the street, I was able to have access to their facility and just talk with a bunch of people based upon relationships that I had, and was able to communicate my desire to do anything, right? And this was the same offseason that Coach Mark Jackson was just let go. Steve Kerr was brought in because I was around. There was some familiarity as the staff was being built out. It ended up that there was a position available in the video room. I actually accepted my first offer to be the video coordinator or video intern in Santa Cruz with their G League team,
Oh,
and
okay.
I was hyped about it. And I was like, this is a part of right, like the 3 years. Like if I'm saying anything, I'm saying G League. So like, cool, perfect, professionals. I got a call like 2 weeks later that they wanted to add an additional intern with the Warriors. And they called and they said, hey, would you be interested in that? I said, of course, like obviously, like we got to do that. So I was very fortunate in that way. And once I was able to get situated in Oakland, the rest is kind of history at that point.
That's awesome. And part of that role, what that role kind of developed into being is you did do some player development stuff eventually in that role as well. And so one of my questions is, so obviously I understand like player development is developing players. Like I get that whole idea of it, but like it's not the fifth grade basketball team that you're teaching how to shoot. Like these are NBA guys, like the top of the game, the best of the best. So what does player development entail in the NBA?
Yeah, I think it's an important distinction that you have to make. So I would tell people all the time, like, if you have the player development for what I do, my responsibility is to our organization. If I'm any good as a coach, then my responsibility is also with my player. And so I would frame it as trying to develop the player, his goals, his ambitions, all within the framework of what we're trying to do, our system and our philosophies organizationally. Under the leadership of our head coach, right? So
Mhm.
as much as I can move you and your game along, right, within the system and framework with what Steve wants to do, that's my job. Where I think people get confused or maybe are misunderstood about what player development is, you see people in the summer and you're doing all kinds of different things. You got the cones out there
Mhm.
doing whatever, and all that is great. That's just not my focus. That's not our focus when you're on a coaching staff and you're a player development coach. My job is to give you the things that you need to learn, develop, to get on the floor, right, for this team.
So, I mean, when you first joined, when you were first part of that Warrior staff, and they were kind of making their championship runs pre Kevin Durant era, there was a lot of like veterans on that team. Like it was a very heavy veteran team. So, with veterans, like how do you still have player development with guys who kind of have been doing their craft for so long and kind of already have their own way of doing things?
That's a great question. I think the first thing is that like when you find yourself in a professional space, it's all about respect. when I came in, I just understood. So if you're talking about the first person I actually ever worked out was Sean Livingston, right? So this is a guy that was formerly regarded as going to be the face of a franchise. He's a top 3 pick. He had played 10 plus years in the league to that point. There's nothing that I can come in and tell him that he doesn't already know, that he hasn't already thought about. He certainly already crafted his game and knows himself far better than I ever could at that point. So it's really about building a relationship and collaborating together to continue to move his game along. I just come in with that approach and with that respect that, a guy that's played 10 plus years, 82 games a season, like he's going to have been in some situations that I can't speak to because whether I watched it on film or talked about it in a coach's meeting, it's so very different when you're in between the lines, making those reads, having that pressure in a social media era, being under the microscope. There's so many things that you really can't speak to with personal experience. So I've got to rely on them to communicate that. And again, work together, be collaborative in coming up with a plan. Some it's maintenance, some want to continue to grow and stretch and be creative to break up monotony with their routines that they've established over a number of years. Others, it's about just providing an additional lens to make sure that their detail is where they want it to be. So you really just kind of have to assess each individual player and then give them what they need, again, with the understanding of how it is that's going to be utilized for us in our system.
So when you're working with these guys and you're hands-on working, training with them, like scrimmaging, practicing, whatever, does that kind of fill that desire that you had of playing in the NBA since you never, like we talked about earlier, like you didn't get that chance through no fault of your own? Does that kind of fill that desire at all of being able to do that?
Yes and no. I think early in my career, I say early, I've only been doing it for like 5 years, but it feels good to know that I've worked and earned an opportunity to be amongst the best for whatever it's worth for myself. Like I never needed someone to tell me, oh, you could play in the NBA, or like me going out there and scrimmaging and like getting a dunk, making a shot, whatever. That doesn't move me because for me, I've always believed and known that for myself anyway. And so if you were ever, authentic in that thought, you wouldn't be looking for confirmation outwardly about what it is that you believe you could do. That being said, I'm still super pumped, excited, blessed, and fortunate to be able to do this every day, to scrimmage, and have moments with Steph and Dre and Clay, and go back and forth about talking mess with Clay about beating them when he was in the pack, and like, look, you got all these other dudes fooled, right? But like, what it was in 2010. So I would say it goes both ways, right? Like I don't lean on that. Like I didn't need that, but I do appreciate the opportunity to be in a professional space and to be doing that for my hometown team. That stuff is really special.
Yeah, and as we kind of mentioned off top, like you went to De La Salle High School, you grew up in the Bay Area, so this is really kind of been where you've been at looking basketball-wise for really your whole life. But so a lot of people, like I would say, don't necessarily know what like an NBA practice looks like. So like when you're working with a guy, is it like break off into stations, Theo, you go work with your guy right now? Is it you're scrimmaging? Like take me through what an NBA practice generally kind of looks like.
Well, an NBA day, like a practice day, is actually, it's not super long for the players. They come in, they get their work, and they're out. For me, I would get to the facility maybe 8 o'clock. Practices at 11. In waves, guys will start trickling in. Younger guys first. So for an 11 o'clock practice, the first guys might hit the floor around 9:30. A lot of the younger guys that aren't getting minutes will come in. They'll lift. We'll get a workout before practice. They'll go get some treatment while some of the vets come in. They may or may not get on the floor prior to. There's a staff meeting at a certain point. It just depends if you're able to attend or not based upon the needs of your players on that given day. There may be a rehab assignment that you need to pop in and be ready to play on the floor with. But once 11 o'clock hits, we'll do a team film. There's not a whole lot that goes on, and I try to get people to understand this about professional sports, at least in my estimation. In college, when people work out, you'll hear players say, "Oh, coach, I worked out for an hour today." Speaking of basketball, that's all I know. I worked out an hour today, hour and a half, got it in, went in the gym. In the pros, there's not really that opportunity because you're doing this every day, but the opportunity to improve is because you're working on your craft literally every single day, right? So whatever roadblocks or restrictions that are in place for you as a college athlete, self-inflicted or otherwise, those don't exist in the professional setting. So the fact that you can work on your game literally every single day for 30 minutes, that's far better an approach for developing yourself than a handful of times a week for an excessive period of time. I have seen the benefit of guys getting so much better because it's that continuity and consistency of the daily approach, right? So 20 minutes every day versus 60 minutes twice a week. You always have that feel, you always have that touch, right? Think about the times where if you played and you stepped away from the game for an extended period, there's an adjustment coming back. If you do a little something every day, you're always going to be sharp. And so that's what guys do. They're always kind of just chopping at wood throughout this process. So 11 o'clock practice, we might go 30 minutes, 35 minutes, short and sweet, give guys a game plan, work on our fundamentals. And then after, it's that individual work that I talked about. Everybody knows what they need. Vets are going to do their thing. Steph's going to be on one court, getting his shots up. Draymond on the other, Clay on the other. You might have a basket with some 3-on-3s going with some young guys, some rehab guys. But the actual practice isn't very long. And this is an everyday thing. So you have to be extremely mindful of the wear and tear, getting guys off their feet, and not just being out on the court for a couple of hours every day. You got to be really efficient with your time.
Okay. So also I noticed that you said for the players, it's not that long of a day. Like you come in, you get your work in, you get out. So you said you get in at 8. When does your day end?
I tell people my days never end, and that's okay. Like, I do basketball for a living, right?
Mm-hmm.
So last night I was working and I watched 2 playoff games. So, and that's kind of the gist of what I do. But let's say it's a game day now. That was kind of the practice day breakdown. For me on a game day, it would be the same thing, getting about 8. I will have been working on some film that I potentially want to show any one of my players that that I'm going to work with that night. That film can range from his practice from the day before, his game from the day before, some concepts that I wanted to show him from a player comparison, a player comp on another team. This film package might be reflective of the game plan for that night. It might be personnel for the upcoming opponent. So I'm working to put this film together. We'll still get on the floor prior to our shoot around, get some work in. We'll have a shoot around for about an hour as a team. This is like 10 o'clock in the morning. Once we finish there, you're back to your office, working on preparing for the game that night. And this is all without, this, let's just say this is not the game that I'm scouting either, right? Mm-hmm. So like, I'm not even watching the clips, the 5 games that I would be watching to prepare our team to play that night. So this is just me. This is not my game. I'd have a couple of hours in the afternoon, but for a 7:30 game, you're back at the facility. You're back on the floor by like 3:30, 4 o'clock. So you're probably at the facility 2 o'clock after leaving around 11. So there's just not a whole lot of time. You're going to go play a game. You're going to go rewatch the game you just watched after the game so that you're ready to show that film the next day to your player first thing in the morning. So it really never stops. But again, I love it. It's basketball. I don't think it's work. I will never believe it to be work. Therefore, I can work extremely hard doing it is what I love to do.
And when you mentioned on games that like you're not scouting a game, like, so if you're scouting a game, like is there really a scouting report in the NBA? Like, I mean, you know what LeBron's bringing every night. You know what Giannis is, what his game is. Like, is there a scouting report still in the NBA, or is it not really the same type as it might be in like a high school and college?
No, I think the scouts are extremely in depth and informative. And the one thing I think people don't really understand is how impressive, in my opinion, it is for these guys to take in all the information that we're giving them and turn it around in such quick fashion. So you could be playing a back to back. You're playing Houston on Tuesday, and then you're going to fly, you're going to be on the plane, and then you could be playing the Lakers the next night. There could be a completely different uh, two different teams, right? Style of play, personnel, etc. So our approach, our game plan going into each of those games is going to be completely different. Guys in the NBA have a great ability to digest information quickly, sometimes without even practice, because if that's a back-to-back, like I just mentioned, you're not coming in the morning for a shoot around. Again, guys can't be on their feet. So it's like, wake up, you're in the hotel, we have a breakfast meeting, and you're going to go through a laundry list of things. Hey, this is their actions. This is how we're going to guard it. But when LeBron's in this spot, this is how we're going to guard it. AD's on the floor. This is what we're doing. Here are the adjustments. Here are the tendencies of each player. This happens, 4 times a week for these guys, while switching time zones, while being fatigued, while being banged up, while going through contract disputes, while like a whole gamut of things, right? So I just have always found it extremely impressive for players to have the ability to retain so much information that we're actually giving them. And then in the playoffs, it goes to a whole nother level. So it's one of those things, if you know, you know. When I watch an NBA game, I can see the detail. I can see all the things that are trying to get done. There is an element of flow and creativity and, just kind of winging it out there. But I can see the intent because, I'm privy to being on the staff and can kind of read into what teams are trying to accomplish in any given moment. So there's a lot of context. There's a lot of things that teams are trying to get done that far exceed anything that you'll ever see on a collegiate or high school level.
So after your first stint with the Warriors, you were on the staff with Luke Walton. And Luke went down to go be the head coach of the LA Lakers, and you joined him down in LA. What was that conversation like with him to get you down to SoCal?
So we're in the playoffs in 2016, and he was going through his courtship, I guess if you will, with the Lakers. Once he got that job, I think we were in the second round and just moved to the conference finals. And so I remember having a series of conversations with him over a couple of weeks. We were in Oklahoma City, and we had just talked about what that role and that opportunity would look like. For me, working with Luke, it wasn't a no-brainer. I certainly understood what it was that I had here in Golden State. But at that point in time, it sounds crazy, but like winning wasn't the most important thing to me. I was a young coach. I still am a young coach. But for me, the experience of having gone 67-15, winning a title, having never lost back-to-back games in that season, and then following it up with going 73-9, being in the finals again, it wasn't extremely relatable for, in my opinion, 29 other teams in the league. So how was it that I was going to be a coach that was best prepared to address and service the needs of players should an opportunity arise at any one of those other teams? When thinking in that way, the decision to go to LA was a no-brainer. I need to go down and work with a different staff, a different front office, get myself uncomfortable, be on a team with different expectations, work with a lottery team, right? So now it was a great situation to experience not only a team that, was extremely young, but when you get in those moments and situations, you've got young guys that are also your high minutes guys and high usage guys. So you're learning how to balance this incredible need for improvement, also being extremely mindful to the consideration that you have to take in terms of, well, these guys still got to be ready to play every night. So it was an important experience to go through something completely different than the Warriors. And as you mentioned, a veteran-laden team, guys that know what they're doing, know what they want, know what they need, and you're there to assist in that process versus you go down to the Lakers, we just draft Brandon Ingram. He's coming from Duke. He's 19. He knows nothing about the NBA. You really get an opportunity to help mold and shape a young professional and do team building that way. So that was incredibly important. And Luke is a phenomenal person, a great coach. I was excited to join him in LA, and it was a really good experience.
How did all that stuff that you're just talking about that you learned, how have you been able to kind of implement that into how you are coaching and how you see things now?
Well, I think last year was a perfect opportunity to put those experiences into play, right? We coming off of 5 straight years going to the finals for this Warriors organization, we found ourselves last year we're now a lottery type team. We are a lottery team. So the expectation of winning 60 games a season, last year we won 15 games. How you deal with that is incredibly important. What type of energy do you bring to your building every day? How do you keep the morale high? How do you break, some of those losing snides? And I had that experience by only, we won 26 games in LA. So just knowing how to kind of navigate those waters and bring that experience, bring an ability to calm those waters as we're kind of going through it and provide perspective and leadership, in my lane to some of these players, I thought was really important. And I felt so much more prepared because I had gone through the experience in LA to be able to handle this situation that we faced this past year. And it certainly made it easier because I did that experience with the Lakers. And then we find ourselves with D'Angelo Russell this year, who I worked with also in LA, like it was one of my players, just having that relationship, it made everything easier. We were able to speak to moments that would pop up as we were going through things here in San Francisco with this team for the first time. So I just felt really well prepared, and the Lakers experience obviously had a lot to do with that.
So when you went down to LA, you were only there with the Lakers for a year, and then you decided to move on. What was it about that situation that you decided, like, I've got all I can get, I need to go to the next steps? Like, what was that thought process like?
For me, I've always just been guided by, what's going to be the best for me long term in terms of, again, trying to add experiences and skills to my tool belt. And with the Lakers, I had told Luke earlier in the year, he had asked me, what my ambitions were. You're having those conversations always with your head coach. Hey, I want to be a head coach one day. These are my interests. This is kind of how I see myself. These are the things that I need to grow. He asked me specifically about college, and I told him, I was like, look, I would never entertain anything. Like Coach K could call me at Duke, and I wouldn't be interested. I work for the Lakers. I'm in the NBA. Like, I'm good. However, if Cal called, like, that's home. And so, like, what that is for me. The opportunity to contribute in my own, like, I'm from the Bay, like, that's my community. Like, there's a soft spot for that. And, crazy enough, the serendipity of it all, we had that conversation in like November and April, an opportunity arises. And I just thought it was a really good chance to, after having been in the NBA for 3 years, put all that information into use in a role that was designed to have more impact as one of 3 assistant coaches on the collegiate level. One of my mentors, Ron Adams, I think my first year in Golden State, he told me something that stuck with me. He said, you only know what you can teach, right? So because I had sat in all these rooms, championship runs with the Warriors, been with the Lakers, worked with lottery picks, worked with MVPs, it feels good, and you can feel my knowledge, my growth going like this, but I needed to now find an opportunity where I was responsible for just giving that, like, on a consistent basis, like really having an impact and bringing a group of guys along. And I had the opportunity to do that as one of 3 assistants at a Power 5 school that happened to be my alma mater. So I was really excited about that opportunity.
That seemed like everything worked out really well then. And so what was that experience like then, going back to kind of where it all started and now being one of those assistant coaches, taking everything you've learned?
It was good. It was really fulfilling for me. The experience ultimately didn't work out at Cal. The NBA game and the collegiate game are completely different. But I did find it very rewarding to know that, man, I've gotten so much better. I can lead, I can communicate, I can teach, I can help grow these players on and off the floor. It was a really good time for me. It also then for me reaffirmed that, hey, I probably do like the NBA more, depending on the type of situation that's available on the college level. So it was a good opportunity for me, and I feel extremely fortunate to have gotten another shot in the NBA because I understand how selective and fortunate I am to have even gotten my first, because people try to get the NBA all day, every day, and it just doesn't happen, right? There's 30 teams, a select number of spots. I was able to get one. I left. So to come back and make that happen, like that's not lost on me. Like I understand how fortunate I am in that regard, but it was a good experience to kind of put in the first wave and first run of my NBA experience to kind of put that knowledge to the test and be able to see what I could do with it at Cal, and that was a lot of fun.
And another kind of cool thing that was happening kind of during this whole time period was you helped coach the U17 Team USA. So what was that like to be part of or be a coach and part of like kind of that Team USA family?
An incredible honor. I mean, we all know what that is. We know what it represents. So to have the opportunity to work with our very best high school coaches, high school players, there were professional coaches there. Don Showalter, who was the head coach of that group, is phenomenal. Samson Coyote, Sean Ford, all these guys, executives at USAB. It was just an incredible experience to go up to Colorado Springs, to be exposed to the top, young talent, and just kind of get a feel for who's coming up. Again, similar situation, right? To be able to walk into that space, no one knows me from Adam, but to be able to command the respect of the room and be able to speak on certain things because I have this NBA pedigree, an experience of being a former collegiate athlete at a high level, a level they're all going to go play at and score more than 1,200 or 1,300 points, presumably. I was able to get their attention, and we were able to have some really good days of collaborative learning. I learned as much from them, hopefully, as they did from me. And it also set the stage for, I think, being able to work for USAB again, which I did this past summer for the national team before they went off to the World Cup. So nothing but positive experiences surrounding USA basketball, and hope to continue working with them well into the future.
And another thing to kind of go off of or stay with that USA basketball, I saw a story recently that I believe it was last summer, during USA basketball when Kerr was coaching with Coach Pop there. He was talking with Jeff Van Gundy, who was coaching the USA Select team. And you got brought up, and Jeff was saying how if he ever was a head coach again, he would love to have you on his staff. And Kerr shot back with, well, not if I get him first. I don't know if you've ever heard that story or not, but like, what does that mean to you to have these two like very well respected coaches in the NBA essentially arguing over you?
I mean, it feels good. Like that's the truth. It feels good. But no, I'm humbled by it. Like each and every day that I've been able to work for and alongside Steve, the opportunity to have worked with Jeff Van Gundy, who I had a tremendous amount of respect for before ever meeting him, and then to be a part of his practices, be a part of those teams. just learned so much. And, for me, it's a situation like that where I still have pinch myself moments where I find myself working with Steve Kerr. I'll tell you this, at that USA basketball experience, like I'm sitting at dinner, and on one night I had Coach Pop to my left, um, Lynn Merritt from Nike to my right, PJ Carlissimo, Sean Ford, Steve Kerr, Mark Few, just everyone that's associated, with USA basketball. It's like a who's who. And this is close quarters. Like, this is our training camp. We're doing this. It was a 2-week thing. We were in Las Vegas. We were in LA. And, I just had the greatest time just picking all these guys' brains, talking about old teams, coaching, how the game's changed, all those experiences, drinking wine that I had no business drinking. So it was a great experience, man. And I just, again, I'm excited to hopefully have the opportunity to continue to do that. But even if I never do again, like, I've been incredibly blessed and fortunate to have done the many things that I've already been able to be a part of to this point.
Absolutely. That's some invaluable experience right there. Like, you can't get that anywhere else. But so off of that quote unquote argument, obviously Kerr won that because you are now back with the Warriors. So how did that journey happen for you to get back to the Warriors for round number 2?
I've always stayed in touch, with these guys. I mean, it's like family to me. They're phenomenal people, but certainly when you win something together, when you win at that level, a championship, a world championship, that ties you together. And so we would always stay in contact. Anytime I was in the Bay, whether I was with the Lakers or at Cal, those are my guys. So I'm hanging out with coaches on the staff, players on team I stay in touch with, because it's also bigger than basketball too, right? So our relationships would continue even if and when the ball stops bouncing. So once that's in place, I find myself in Detroit after the year at Cal. I'm in Detroit. I'm working for the Pistons, which was another great opportunity to, again, be exposed to another style of leadership, another style of play, a different front office. For me personally, just transplanting myself out of my comfort zone. To that point, I'd only lived in California my entire life. Like, it was like 31 years in the Bay and 1 year in LA. So then you take all of that and you're just like, boom, let's just go drop it in Detroit for a little bit and see what that does for you. It was a really good experience, but I think, it's just kind of the way things happen. You're having communication. Hey, there's an opening. We think you would be good. Are you interested? Obviously, yes, I would love to. And I found my way back over here.
So when your first stint with the Warriors was video coordinating and some player development, now you're just sole player development. So what's like the biggest difference in your role now than what it was?
I don't touch the video. I mean, I can, because I have that skill set. So, if I'm at home, I see something, I have the ability to do it. And I pride myself on doing as much as I can. And I view the video role, because I've served in that role, as an integral part of our organization. But like, as I've risen through the ranks and earned more responsibility, I take the responsibility with those promotions and so forth to do more, right? Like, that's the accountability. Like, for me, I look at promotions as saying, hey, you've shown to be extremely capable with the work that we've tasked you with. We think you can do more. That's what promotions are saying to me. So it doesn't mean I take my plate and slide it to the next man, right? And I slide into a new position. It means I take my plate and I slide it with me, knowing that I'm going to have more resources, a bigger capacity to take on more, whether that's compensation, whether that's titling, again, people around you that can help support your mission of doing more, not someone doing something for you. That's always been my mentality. So really, the biggest difference between a video coordinator player development for me was I didn't have that title, and I'm not responsible for the video, but I still do my own largely because there's a way I want it done. I can do it. Why waste time with sending it somewhere else when it doesn't have to go that way? Now, if there's a need and a necessity, the fact that I'm a player development coach and not the video coordinator means that someone could assist me in getting that done. That's the only difference.
And you mentioned that you worked with D'Angelo Russell this past season, and one of the other guys who you worked with and clearly did a pretty good job of working with him was Eric Paschall, who was just recently named to the All-NBA first team. So we talked about earlier about how like your first stint you were working with Sean Livingston, working with the vets. Like how different is it now working with a rookie who's doesn't have any of that knowledge and is trying to find his way in the NBA?
It's a different excitement that comes with it. First, I just want to make a distinction. First team All NBA rookie, because
yes. Sorry. Meant to add the rookie part.
Because that's where we're working to get to. But I can't lie to him. He's not with Bron. He's not with Kawhi. None of them dudes just yet. That's the goal for any and all of us, right? But no, he had a fantastic year, and it was exciting to work with him. The challenge is meeting them where they're at, right? Understanding who they are, how they've grown into that person to that point, right? What's your background? What moves you? What drives you? Learning all these things about this individual so that you can best accelerate the learning curve for them to be able to do the things that our front office saw potential for them doing on the floor, right? So let's just get out in front of all the things that I foresee will be potential roadblocks by getting to know you right now. Like what makes you go? Like, do you work hard enough? Like, what's your attention to detail? Like, when we first get you in summer league, let me try to assess all these different things so that by the time training camp comes around, you might not even be where you want to be in terms of I shoot the three better or I'm handling the ball. But if you have a professional disposition and attitude about your work, becoming a pro, that's the first step. So it always starts there for me with rookies, and it's just creating a mindset. I'm going to be the hardest working player in the gym. I got to be the first player in the gym. I got to be the last player in the gym. I got to ask questions. I got to eat right. Trying to develop all these habits so that you truly become a pro, because those are the things that really distinguish a rookie from a vet, an Eric from a Sean. When you first walk in and walk with Sean Livingston, he can tell you all the things that he already is doing that has made him a pro, versus Eric not knowing what a pro is. Therefore, you have to give him those things. That's the biggest difference.
What kind of development did you see about all the stuff you were just talking about as that season went on?
Most notably, how to work. I think like E is a gamer. He's extremely competitive, and that's exactly what you would expect from someone that won 2 national championships in college. So he's all about winning. He's all about rising to the moment. But I think the biggest area of improvement for him, in my estimation, was just how to maximize those days, those minutes on the floor. Again, you're a young guy, you're playing a ton for us. So yes, there's going to be days where you're not going to want to get out there and get reps in, and you're going to want to get on the training table. You're going to do that anyway. But where can we change your mindset from I can't go today to what can we do to still improve, but be conscious and aware and diligent about the need for recovery, rest, recuperation, etc. So it's not accepting, fatigue or not even an excuse, but a reason to not get on the floor and get your work in. It's finding an opportunity to do something different that still supports your need to get off your feet, right? So that was the biggest change that I saw in him, is just always trying to find ways to improve. It's cool. We might not do anything on the floor today, but I need your mentality to be like, yo, let's go watch the third quarter from last night. I didn't like the way we came out. The energy was bad. I wasn't ready. I was fouling early in the clock. Like, what happened? That to me is the sign of becoming a pro versus someone that maybe is still collegial in their mindset. Oh, it's an off day today. I'm at the house. I'm chilling. Off here is like there's no practice. But if you're serious about your craft, you're using an off day to be creative in your own individual need for growth. And that can come in many different ways. So it was shifting that mindset. And then technically, there were some things on the floor that he improved on, some things that Steve wanted to see. I think he became a better playmaker as the year went on, certainly after the All-Star break. He became more efficient. He stopped fouling as much. So that's both technique and then also becoming more familiar with the NBA game and how it's called. So there were some steps that he took that definitely helped him. And I thought he played his best basketball at the end of the season, right before we shut down. So definitely deserving of a first team all rookie. And we're extremely excited and fortunate to have him.
So earlier we talked about how, or you mentioned how this past season for the Warriors was really kind of like a big, almost like fitting for your role, like developmental year with so many stars being out and so many young guys really starting to learn. Like, how did that change or affect your role at all, being that you're now kind of working towards a new goal? It's not getting into with the guys. It's all right, you're starting, like, this is it. Here we go.
Yeah, I mean, it just changes. The expectations change overnight. On November 4th, Steph breaks his hand, and if you're Kai Bowman, you're starting, and you were in Santa Cruz the night before. You're a guy that comes out of Boston College on a two-way contract, and you hear it all the time in pro sports, like, be ready, next man up. You never know when your opportunity is going to come. That's kind of what this season was for a lot of our guys. No one really anticipated that they would be getting the type of minutes that they ended up getting. We knew we were going to be without Clay for a majority of the season. It turned out to be the entirety of it, but you still thought you were going to be out there playing with Steph, with D'Lo, with Kevon Looney, Draymond. So, a good stable of veteran presence that was still made available, but in so many ways, those guys weren't able to find themselves on the floor. So we had a ton of young guys that were able to get those minutes. And look, when it's all said and done, the best development is going to come by being thrown in the fire, right? Like all the things that I'm talking about, you get your hands up on a closeout because guys are going to shoot your face off in this NBA. Like, you know what I mean? You can't feel that when you're necessarily out there working with coaches and, dude is 6'3" and you can get your shot off. Well, now Jeremy Grant for Denver's running at you, and that stuff is happening a little bit quicker. Those guys got 65 games of that they weren't expecting. So it's a challenge. Again, the biggest part of it is just being young and trying to manage the need for growth and the need to be available at 7:30 for game nights. But our guys, they handled it well. And I would say the biggest thing with that additionally was also understanding that the very next season, we're expecting to be in contention again. So it's not just you're getting minutes on a lottery-bound team and we're saying, hey, play through your mistakes and we're going to grow and it's going to take some years to get better. It's like, it's that, but like, look, next year when you have 30 and 11 next to you and Dre out there, like the margin for error is like this. Like, we need to be ready to execute and be accountable and reliable and build that trust, not only with the players out there that have that championship pedigree, but with Steve and the rest of the coaching staff so that they can believe that you can get some things done in some critical moments. So that was an additional challenging piece for this season.
So do you stay like working with Pascal next year, or do you like get assigned to someone else? Like, how does that all work?
I mean, generally you stay with the players that you have been assigned. Anything can happen. My mentality has always been like, what's best for the team. And the way we've done things here in Golden State, it's not ever been, well, this guy only works with guards or bigs or whatever. We try to match people based upon what's going to be best for the player, right? So if there's some commonality, guys went to the same high school, played for the same college coach, played the same position, you're evaluating all those different things and trying to figure out what makes sense for everybody. And that's just the way we do it. Other teams will do, hey, this guy only works with bigs, he works with guards. But Steve is he's extremely collaborative. He wants everyone to give their input, and we have video guys that work with our players. We have guys that are former point guards working with bigs. So basketball is basketball. If you have an ability to communicate and you know the game and you've demonstrated that you can help someone, we're going to let you do that.
Do you or people in player development or stuff like that, do they have any say of, or like, does anyone ask for your input on, hey, who do you think might be like fit here, or if they're trying to bring in a piece or stuff like that? Is that something that is talked with you about at all?
Yeah, it is, because the league is so small, and I think most front offices, it would behoove them to speak with people that have relationships, right, with different players, and certainly we all do. We all have friends in coaching that are on other staffs, and so you're talking to people all the time, and you may have a nugget that could be beneficial for. Excuse me, our front office as they go through their decision-making process. You got guys like myself that have worked on different teams. So, last summer, of course, they're going to come to me and say, well, hey, what do you think about Glenn Robinson? You had him in Detroit. We're looking at him. We want to potentially bring him in. Who is this guy? Good dude, yay, day, whatever. And, you give your piece and you share that information. And so there's always an information bank that's being added to. And you try to do that. Like when you come to an NBA game early and you see all the players talking after their warm-ups and coaches at half court, like front offices want to do their best to get as much information as possible. So they're going to certainly lean on their staff at the right times to try to get that information from them.
And I mean, so you were on the staff at Oracle. Now you're at Chase. Like, what's that been like being in this whole new gorgeous arena?
It still feels new, man, to be honest, just because we didn't, finish out our first season. It's weird for me because it kind of has like an Oracle intention, but it's obviously not Oracle, right? So it's like you said, it's a gorgeous building. I look at last year for Chase as like kind of the soft opening in a lot of ways, right? This year, the roster, we had to figure out the parking, the flow. Everyone's just like new, like where's the locker room, like whatever. This season, to me, is like the doors are open, right? We had a chance to take it out for a test drive. We got our dogs back. But the one thing that I think is missing, and this takes time, and it's funny to even think about this kind of stuff, the thing that's missing and why it doesn't feel like home all the way just yet, while you're still truly learning your way around. Like I haven't been in every locker room in Chase, but it has no moments, right? Mm-hmm. There's no Clay like 50 ball. There's no game winner, to my knowledge, yet. But there's no moments. Like when people ask me what the difference between Oracle and Chase is, I don't really think aesthetics, like whatever, because again, Chase to me feels like some semblance of what Oracle was, and so like I'm still digesting what all that means. But I immediately think about the fact that like, man, you won 73 on that floor. For those guys that were on that team in 2017, they won a title on that floor, so they brought a championship to Oakland. So there's all these other things that, in my opinion, come to mind aside from the actual physical structure of the buildings. It's more about the moments for me.
Awesome. And I know you're a busy man, so we only got a couple more questions for you left. But I mean, going back to Cal real quick. So when you were at Cal, you majored in social welfare. So like when you were playing and when you were looking towards your future, outside of a future in the NBA, like what were your plans for your future?
To be honest, like I didn't have anything outside of that. I'm just gonna keep it all the way real with you. I was fully focused on being the very best that I could be as a basketball player. I'll tell you this, my ambition was always to give 100% in both. I felt like you could do that. There was no, well, I'm so consumed with getting to the NBA that like whatever 70% of my energy is committed and 30% to the classroom. No, you can give 100% to the classroom and 100% to the floor, and that's what I was worried about doing. So I was trying to leave no stone unturned to try to make that dream a reality. But I was mindful about all the lessons and skills needed and necessary to again pivot when that time came, when it does come. So while I haven't thought about, oh, if and when basketball stops, what else piques my interest or what else am I capable of doing? I knew that I was still building up skill sets that were transferable across many industries. So it allowed me the opportunity to lock in and chase my dream and try to achieve at the highest level in basketball, still doing that. There's going to come a point in time where I won't be anymore. I haven't thought about what that looks like, but I feel confident in my ability to master the pivot.
You're also on the board of directors for the Big C Society at Cal. Tell me a little bit more about like what exactly that is and what that entails.
Yeah, so that's our governing body for athletic letter winners. It was a really nice opportunity for me to um, really work closely with the program again. Right now, we're doing some different things, promoting, different services and resources for student athletes fresh out, connecting alumni across many different spaces, trying to offer experiences, resources, advice, opportunities, just forming a collective and really strengthening and fortifying the Big C community, right? The student athlete alumni community at Cal. So for me, it was important to have that engagement with all these individuals that some I had the opportunity to share time with on campus, others I have not, but to reach out, to network, to build community, to feel like I'm giving back to my program and address some different issues, and offer input and insight, get my hands dirty with some different projects when I can to try to help promote the experience for those student athletes as they're on campus, but certainly getting them thinking about what life after Cal looks like. In any way that I can be a help or of service, I wanted to do that. So the Big C Society has been a great platform to do that work.
And then lastly, before I let you go, whether it's coaching, whether it's in the NBA or not, what are your like future goals for where you see yourself down the line?
I want to be a head coach. I would love to be a head coach in the NBA. There's 30 jobs, so I feel like I'm realistic with what that looks like, but that doesn't mean you don't try to work to prepare yourself for an opportunity should one arise. I would be open to being a head coach, obviously, at the collegiate level. But as I just mentioned, like I've always wanted to develop myself to be able to do a lot of different things. I've learned in a very short professional career that things change quickly, opportunities pop up when you least expect them. Relationships are everything. So how you carry yourself, how you treat people, are you always learning? Those are the things that matter to me. So yes, I want to be a head coach. That's what I work for every day. I also feel like I can contribute in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different mediums as well, whether that's in sport or otherwise. So I'm excited about the moment. I feel encouraged. I feel blessed to be a part of the Warriors organization at this point in time, to be an NBA coach. I'm 33 years old. I've done it for 5 years. I've been a part of championships. I've worked with great players. I'm extremely blessed. So the future is unknown. I'm okay with that. I'm just trying to work and live in the present, and then just continue to get better. And again, just extremely fortunate about all the things that I've been able to do and accomplish.
Awesome. Theo Robertson, the future head coach of some team in the NBA. It's going to happen. I can see it. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it. And I cannot wait to see what happens for you down the line and all the work with the Warriors next season.
I appreciate it, TJ. Thank you.
And thank you for everyone for watching. Thank you for everyone for listening all season. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast or the YouTube channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss any of these episodes, and you can check out any episodes you might have missed. We got some big things coming for season 3, so make sure to also follow the Instagram at beyond_the uniform and the Facebook page at Beyond the Uniform with TJ Brassel to stay up to date with all of those news. Some exciting stuff coming. And don't forget, every athlete has a story. You just have to listen. I'll see you guys next season.